like that.
No.
We're on a ship. Pun intended.
To start, I think we need to set up some basic information on what exactly I'm referring to when I mention Sterek and talk about the Sterek fandom. Is it even canon? Well, no, but that didn't stop it from growing in popularity. And ultimately, I think that there is something to be learned by looking at Sterek, both the canon and the non-canon. Part 1. The Canon. If we are looking at every single episode of Teen Wolf, there are a handful of moments that some fans look back on and identify as Sterek moments. These are generally pretty easy to identify because they tend to be jumping off points for fan work such as fanfiction and fan art. If you're more interested in the discussion about Sterek outside of the canon, you can skip ahead to this timestamp. If you're here for it all, then this might be a good time to grab a snack and get comfortable. First, we have Season 1, Episode 4. In this episode, Derek is shot with a wolfsbane bullet and Stiles is tasked to take him to the animal clinic and look after him while Scott tries to find the bullet to get an antidote. It's a very tame episode as far as shipping moments go, but it is pretty much the first time that Stiles and Derek interact other than their first meeting in the woods in episode 1, which is also a major moment by the way, and in that episode they just look at each other. At least in this one, Derek is shirtless and Stiles has to touch his body. Next is Season 1, Episode 9. In this episode, we get what is probably the most famous Sterek scene. Stiles and Derek enlist Danny's help to trace a phone number, and Stiles uses Danny's gayness and Derek's hotness to his advantage. There is tension and Derek pushes Stiles up against a door. I swear probably close to 1/3 or 1/2 of all Sterek content draws from this scene as some sort of inspiration. Then there's Season 2, Episode 2. In this episode, Stiles and Derek have a fun scene in the Jeep together, which some people consider flirting, and then at the end of the episode, Derek protects Stiles from Isaac, who is momentarily feral. There's also Season 2, Episode 4, which is another big one for Sterek shippers. This is the much-mentioned moment when Stiles has to hold up Derek's paralyzed body in the school swimming pool. In Season 2, Episode 10, they are both paralyzed by Canema venom, and Stiles falls on top of Derek. Since they're pretty much useless on the ground, they have some banter between them while things happen around them. In Season 3, Episode 2, there's the moment when they are discussing breaking into the bank vault and Stiles and Derek have a bit of banter. Derek gets to show off his strength, and this led to about 1,000 fanfics. In Season 3, Episode 7, following the death of Boyd, Stiles puts his hand on Derek's shoulder to comfort him. Some fans like to point out that Stiles has no real reason to do this unless it's romantic, but I would argue that he is at the very least friendly with Derek at this point. And Derek did just commit murder against his will, so it's not unreasonable that he would show support to his friend. See? I'm a shipper and I don't even think everything is a clue. Similarly, some people point out Season 3, Episode 8 as a shipping moment since Cora and Peter tell Derek's backstory to Stiles and not to anyone else. The common sentiment is that they would have told this to everyone as a group, but again, this just feels like it was to include Stiles in an otherwise Stiles-free episode. In Season 3, Episode 11, there's a moment when Stiles climbs over Derek and hits him to wake him up. I never liked this scene as a shipping moment, but people include it here anyways. I guess from certain angles it could look like he's straddling him. In Season 4, Episode 2, Derek is de-aged and the two have lots of fun banter together. I like the snarkiness of teen Derek almost as much as I love the surliness of regular Derek, so this is a good one. They spend most of the episode together, so there's no doubt that this spawned another 1,000 fanfics. In Season 4, Episode 12, Stiles is the one to be the most worried for Derek when he's shot, other than Brayden, and they have a great moment when they essentially co-parent Liam in the back of the van. Derek isn't actually in Season 5, Episode 1, but there is a moment when Stiles sees his initials at the senior scribe night. He also mentions Derek's departure specifically as being a reason he's upset in Season 5, Episode 2. There's a jump since Derek is entirely absent for pretty much the rest of the series, but in Season 6, Episode 11, we have the moment when Stiles is at the FBI Academy and sees the clip of Derek running shirtless, because of course the assignment is Derek. Similarly, we have a vignette of Stiles and Derek in Season 6, Episode 20, when Derek carries Stiles out of a building with an injured foot. Let the headcanons ensue. I highly recommend checking out this website where a fan went through and cataloged every single Sterek interaction in the series from a shipping lens. It's quite insightful and it covers a few other moments that I didn't mention here. Part 2. Audience reaction. It's hard to say exactly just how many of these scenes are specifically added to cater to fans of the show who were Sterek shippers. I look at a few of these, the ones in the 6th season especially, and see them as loving nods to the community that fought so hard to get Teen Wolf off the ground in the beginning. This is a big part of the Sterek fandom as well. The amount of work that Sterek shippers did just to keep this show in the public eye. It was very common for groups of Sterek shippers to set up hashtag campaigns on social media to get the show trending every Monday, to spread awareness of fan awards for the show, and even raise money for charity on behalf of Teen Wolf. That's not to say that these were contributed to only by Sterek fans, but it is unquestionable that a majority of the cases can be directly attributed, in large part, to Sterek shippers specifically. Many people look back on some of these moments in canon as explicitly queerbaiting the audience, and if you're unfamiliar with the term, in this case, queerbaiting is essentially implying through marketing or in-canon events that two characters would begin a queer relationship and then never following through on this with content. One of the biggest moments of queerbaiting in regards to Sterek was a video where the actors sat on a boat and encouraged fans to vote for them in an upcoming award show. If I remember correctly, this was during the second season of the show, and if you think back on the list I went through earlier, you may recall that there aren't really all that many significant Sterek interactions beyond the 4th episode of that season, minus the one at the end when they're paralyzed on top of each other. Not a very good look. The outrage from the whole Sterek queerbaiting thing only really grew as the show went on, and it led to quite a bit of backlash against the showrunner Jeff Davis, to the point where it seemed like they were deliberately including moments to spite the audience. It does not escape my notice that Season 3 introduces what some people describe as Girl Derek for Styles to Date with the character Cora, who has a similar surly attitude, at least at first, and is literally Derek's sister. And then again in 3B with Malia, who was also surly and later revealed to also be Derek's family member. Similarly, Season 3 introduces not one but two characters that some fans dubbed Girl Styles for Derek to date. One when he was a teenager and one who was older to match Derek's newly retconned age. I mean, they even cast a girl who had prominent moles. You can't make this shit up. Regardless to where you sit on the topic of Sterek, the queerbaiting thing with Sterek was an absolute disaster. To this day, it is still regularly mentioned as being a contributing factor for people leaving the fandom, and allegedly even the reason for specific cast members leaving the series. Of course, a lot of this is entirely speculation. Due to the backlash, the people behind the scenes of the show started to dial back the amount of information they would give in interviews, and stuck pretty closely to only really discussing the show on an official capacity, like on Wolf Watch, which aired after the show. Even in the eventual fan art compilation, it is almost deliberately scrubbed of any trace of Sterek. Part 3. Then versus now. Now, most of the high-quality Teen Wolf fanfiction, fan art, and fan content is focused on Sterek. It's not a matter of if I want Sterek, I will look for it, but more if I look up Teen Wolf, I will find Sterek. This means that more and more new people that enter the fandom are already primed to start engaging with Sterek on a romantic level before they've even dug deeper into the fandom, or sometimes before they've even seen the show. Back in the day, even before the show had aired, Sterek was immensely popular. I think a lot of that has to do with the crossover of interest that Teen Wolf had with other mega popular series at the time, like Supernatural or The Vampire Diaries. For The Vampire Diaries, the appeal was always to watch the show and imagine yourself as someone who could date one of the all-powerful vampires. This isn't a new thing. Lots of YA does it, Twilight did it too, and it's popular for a reason. A lot of people, especially young people with limited life experience, find it compelling to have a love interest who is unconditionally obsessed with their partner. Teen Wolf, and by extension Sterek, could build off of this because it was a show full of young hot people who were werewolves. Plus, at the time, what we know as Omegaverse was starting to pick up traction in audiences of all ages, and being a show about werewolves, Teen Wolf was in a prime spot to capitalize on that audience as well. For Supernatural, many longtime fans of the series were engaged with shipping materials, especially around same-sex couples like Destiel. When Teen Wolf rolled around and had a comparably dark atmosphere and a handful of homoerotic subtext, it was a no-brainer that this type of Supernatural fan might check out Teen Wolf and start engaging in multiple fandoms. To this day, the most common crossover for Teen Wolf in fanfiction is Supernatural, and it's not hard to see why. Teen Wolf existed in a perfect Venn diagram of all of the individual niche that made its competitors successful, which meant that it could draw in audiences from many, many different places. But what does that have to do with Sterek? It really is a sort of a process that feeds itself. Sterek was the largest ship from the very beginning, so it had the highest number of fan creation, which led to more people being interested, which led to more fan works, and so on. In a very basic sense, I think it also comes down to character attachments as well. I mentioned in the Season 1 review I did, but the Teen Wolf cast started off as a core group of 16 characters: Scott, Allison, Jackson, Lydia, Styles, and Derek. At first glance, you might look at this group and pair them off, especially since 4 of said characters are romantically attached as soon as the first or second episode of the series. Immediately, as a younger viewer of a new series, you might look at the characters of Styles and Derek, who have a handful of scenes together, great on-screen chemistry, and are otherwise unattached to female characters, and they are a prime opportunity for an audience's gay shipping needs. I know that Styles is established to be interested in Lydia as soon as the first episode, but she is pretty much completely chained to Jackson the entire first and most of the second season. So by the time episode 4 rolls around and we get our first taste of Styles and Derek together, it's lights out for Stydia and all aboard the Sterek Express. Part 4. But it's problematic. Whenever Sterek as a ship is brought up, there are sort of two sides of the discussion. The first is always someone saying, "I like Sterek," and the other side typically jumps in and starts explaining how they watched the show and never understood why people would like them together. They don't even like each other, or Styles is a teenager and Derek is a grown man. And then the discussion just stops being productive. To many Sterek shippers, it's so much more enjoyable when you don't have those people in your ear every 5 minutes telling you how awful your ship is. And to those who don't ship Sterek, it can be understandably annoying to see a fandom whose foundation is practically built upon it to the point where it's inescapable. I would not be surprised if this exact video sees quite a bit of backlash from general Teen Wolf fans because it refuses to let this Sterek thing just die already. The goal of this video is not to try to convince you to like Sterek, since as I just mentioned, it's pretty hard to sway from one side of the discussion to the other. But as a Sterek shipper myself, I want to take a look at some of the more discussed issues with Sterek and see if they are things that have merit, or if they're just petty observations meant to tear down someone's interest. First, there's the elephant in the room, the big complaint most people mention when discussing Sterek, and that's the age gap between the two characters. In canon, Styles is around 15 to 16 years old in the first season of the show, and Derek is anywhere between 19 and 24 at that same time. I mentioned in the Season 1 video that I believe Derek to be 19 in Season 1, but for this video we'll operate under the assumption he is anywhere between that 19 and 24 age range. Objectively, this means that Styles is a minor and Derek is an adult. There isn't really any other way to look at that age gap and see it as anything other than that. I can't speak for every single Sterek shipper, but I know that this age gap in canon has often made me stop and think about the viability of the ship. I mean, Derek's whole backstory in the first season hinges so much on him being taken advantage of by an older woman when he was a teenager, and I can't imagine that the Derek we know in canon would be very happy to find himself reflected in a similar situation with a love interest. There is also the unfortunate implications of the one popular gay ship having an age gap, leading to the perpetuation of gay stereotypes. For a very long time, and even up until the present day, some people view gay people as predatory simply for their sexual interests. The fact that Teen Wolf had multiple gay characters and yet the most popular gay ship just so happened to be one with an age gap does not escape my notice. This absolutely perpetuates the stereotype that gay men are predatory, and it's not okay. You're probably waiting for me to say "but" and then just start justifying these things, and while I still place myself in the camp of shipping Sterek for reasons I will get into in a second, it really does bear repeating that it is undeniable that there are some problematic elements baked into Sterek as a ship that simply cannot be removed in any context. However, I have been in the Teen Wolf fandom for a long time, and the Sterek fandom for just as long, and this is not an issue that is just left completely unresolved to an extent. Many fan works will age Styles up or age Derek down to make these things less problematic. I've seen some people argue that if you are charitable with the ages in Season 1, you can assume Derek is 19 and Styles is 16, or even 17, and while I think a 2 or 3 year age gap is much less of an issue in a fictional teen drama, I still much prefer interacting with fan works where the age gap is completely nullified. The age of these characters is not really the reason anyone is shipping them. If they want an age gap relationship, they're probably more interested in Styles and Peter as a ship anyway. What interests people, and I know I speak from experience here, is the personalities of the characters and how they play off of each other. I love the grumpy sunshine trope. I love the trope where one of the characters is so drawn to their partner that they're unquestionably devoted. I love the sort of enemies to lovers dynamic, and all of these are very common within the Sterek fandom. Next, there's the common sentiment that shipping Sterek makes the cast uncomfortable. Now, I don't live inside their heads, so I can't confirm if this is true or not, but it is undeniable that there were some bad actors in the Sterek fandom. Especially when it came to the queerbaiting situation that I mentioned earlier, it was not uncommon to see people outright attacking the cast and crew of the show on social media. If it turned out that shipping Sterek made people uncomfortable, I would not be surprised. At the same time, both Tyler Hoechlin and Dylan O'Brien have stated since the finale of the series that they have absolutely no problem with Sterek shippers that behave like typical fans. That is to say, if you're not going out of your way to harass and attack the cast and crew, they probably don't mind you very much. Here's a clip of Tyler Hoechlin at DreamItCon in 2023, courtesy of FR Conventions on YouTube.
Derek and Styles, whatever you guys want to do with your ships is totally fine. I don't care. I don't get into ships in any level because I still don't totally understand them. But I love Derek and Styles. It was my favorite dynamic to play on the show.
This isn't the response of someone who is uncomfortable, but it does strike me as someone who wishes they weren't asked this question every single time they do an interview. Lastly, the biggest complaint I see about Sterek is that it isn't canon. Whether this is Sterek shippers complaining that the ship they want hasn't become canon and writing it off as queerbait, or if it's fans who don't ship Sterek trying to get the shipper to shut the hell up already, we know. We know it's not canon. There might be a small handful of moments that tease or bait the audience, but in the end there are 6 seasons of this show and not a single episode where Styles and Derek are in a relationship. Not even in the movie, though we will touch on that in another video. And I just need to reiterate one thing in this regard. It's fiction. Styles doesn't exist. Derek doesn't exist. It really does not matter in the slightest that some people in the world want these two fictional characters to get together and some people don't. As long as it's not causing legitimate harm to real people in the real world, I see absolutely no problem in enjoying a ship regardless of if it has some toxic elements. It's your preference and your business. If you've made it all the way to this part of the video and I haven't pissed you off completely yet, I have one last piece of advice. Please just keep it civil. If you ship Sterek, you don't need to go out of your way to bring it up everywhere and try to convert people to your side. Just stick to what you're doing and enjoy yourself. I promise it's a lot more fun when you aren't listening to people tell you how stupid you are or how problematic your ship is. Hell, if you want fanfiction recommendations, I can give you literally hundreds. If you don't ship Sterek, congratulations. Assuming you're still watching this video, I can't imagine you would have gotten this far if you weren't a fan of Teen Wolf, and it can't be easy being a Teen Wolf fan and not shipping Sterek. I'm sorry that all the good fan content is a ship you hate. Maybe one day I'll make a video about a different ship and then you can actually enjoy yourself. That's all I've got for you today, so if you want to see more, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and maybe share this video with a friend. The next season review will be out just as soon as I have time to actually edit it. These things are huge and take up a ton of time, so I will get that as soon as possible. If you have any suggestions for other side videos like this, or if you have specific ships you want me to look at, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to check them out. Until next time.